Imagine this. Beneath your house lies a mountain of pure gold, one of the top 3 richest deposits on the planet. You are dirt poor and drowning in debt. And yet, you haven't even swung a pickaxe. Outsiders are stomping their feet. Are you stupid? Just dig it out and cash in. And you reply, can't. If I dig, my house might collapse. The gold has to be hauled to town to sell, and the transport costs more than the gold itself. And the neighbor next door says, if I so much as lift a shovel, he'll fight me to the death. This isn't a joke. This is a true story. Except the main character isn't a person, it is a river, the Yarlung Tsangpo. This river begins in the glaciers of Tibet, charges eastward, and near a place called Mêdog, it suddenly hairpins nearly 180 degrees before plunging into South Asia. Right there, at the Great Bend, over just 200 kilometers, the river drops from an elevation of several thousand meters, a sheer vertical fall of 2,000 meters. In the hydropower game, head times flow equals pure, clean electricity. The Yarlung Tsangpo's theoretical hydropower potential. 110 million kilowatts. What does that mean? It is 3 times the size of the Three Gorges Dam. 3 Gorges. The energy equivalent of Three Gorges Dams roars day and night, rushing for free into India and Bangladesh without leaving us a single kilowatt. And here we are in 2026. China has cascaded and squeezed nearly every river worth damming. Yet, on the Yarlung Tsangpo's main stem, 0 dams, 0 power stations. It sits there like a strategic fossil, deliberately frozen in time. You might see some feel-good spin online. It is a grand gesture of responsibility, voluntarily leaving it untouched for the sake of downstream ecosystems. Before you build a dam, the first thing you do isn't calculate how much electricity you'll get. You check whether the ground underneath can hold it. It is like buying a house. The location and renovation mean nothing if the land beneath is a hollowed-out mine. Would you dare live there? Why has the Three Gorges Dam stood rock solid for decades? Because its site sits on a massive block of Proterozoic diorite granite. What is granite? You take a sledgehammer to it, sparks fly, your hands go numb, and the rock doesn't even show a scratch. Dense, seamless, quake-resistant. A shield of stone that hasn't budged for hundreds of millions of years. Now take a look at the Great Bend of the Yarlung Tsangpo. Pull up a map of southeastern Tibet. It is where the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate are slamming into each other. And guess what? They're still colliding. India keeps bulldozing northward by a few centimeters every year. That is how the Himalayas were squeezed up in the first place. That bend sits right at the frontier of that collision, a crossroads of the Himalayan tectonic belt and the Hengduan mountain fault zone. To a geologist, that is not a scenic wonder. That is a wound on the Earth's crust that is still bleeding and has never healed. Elsewhere, earthquakes are measured by the year. There, they're measured by the day, sometimes by the hour. Pull up a seismograph record and it is a dense mess of spikes, like a heart monitor about to flatline. What is the result of all this high-frequency shaking? The mountains have been shattered. The rock on both sides of the gorge isn't one solid mass. It is like a biscuit that has been smashed with a hammer, riddled with cracks. The slightest disturbance, and it comes tumbling down. In 2018, multiple massive landslides hit the area, blocking the river and creating barrier lakes. That was nature's way of tapping you on the shoulder, buddy. Tread carefully. Now imagine trying to build a super dam hundreds of meters tall here, pouring millions of tons of concrete, then backing it up with tens of billions of cubic meters of water. That is like hanging a few-ton iron weight on a rubber band that is about to snap at any moment. The moment you start excavating, the release of in-situ stress could cause the OPP Osite mountain face to simply collapse. Collapse, form a new barrier lake, the lake overtops, and then a wall of water tears downstream. And it doesn't end there. Say you somehow slog through and finish the dam. Then one day, a quake like Wenchuan strikes. Doesn't even have to be magnitude 8 AS7 would do. The dam shifts a few centimeters, or a tiny crack appears. Under 2,000 meters of waterhead, remember. The Three Gorges head is only a bit over 100 meters. That water turns into a laser blade. It'll rip that crack open in seconds, and the entire dam could fail within minutes, hundreds of billions of tons of water screaming down from the Himalayas. Not only would it wash away Mêdog and all infrastructure downstream on our side, it would roar into the plains of India and Bangladesh. Tens of millions of people's homes turned into a sea. The resulting humanitarian catastrophe and the cascade of liabilities. Not even a state can shoulder that lightly, let alone a company. Okay, so you say, let's skip the riskiest part of the bend. Move upstream, find a calmer stretch. Fine. But then another ghost gate awaits you. Permafrost, the Tibetan plateau is covered with vast swaths of high-altitude permafrost. The surface might thaw a bit in summer, but deep down it stays frozen year-round. When it is frozen, it is hard enough to walk on. But you have to dig foundations and pour concrete. Concrete generates heat as it cures, heat of hydration. Pour hundreds of thousands of cubic meters. And it is like burying a giant radiator underground. The heat seeps down and the permafrost begins to melt. Once it melts, that frozen soil turns to sludge. Sludge flows, sludge sinks. Your freshly laid foundation will visibly tilt. You have to deploy all sorts of cooling techniques, like driving thermosiphons into the ground to pull the heat out. These techniques aren't impossible, they're just mind-bogglingly expensive. So the first bottom line emerges, it is not that we can't build it, the ground simply won't cooperate. Dare to build and it dares to collapse. This is no longer a cost issue. It is a bottom line safety issue. All right, let's take 10,000 steps back. Our country is a tech powerhouse and infrastructure maniac. The ground is bad. We'll pile drive down to the deep bedrock. The mountains are shattered. We'll wrap them in rebar and concrete like a zongzi. Ignore the cost and just brute. Force it. Fine. Then let's run the second set of numbers. How do you even get the stuff in there? Let me paint you a picture of the terrain. The Yarlung Tsangpo Grand Canyon, both banks are snow-capped peaks, thousands of meters high, and the river runs through a razor-thin slash at the bottom. Follow the river, and there is no flat ground, just slopes steeper than 70 degrees. Finding a flat patch the size of a basketball court is a luxury. A hydropower station needs what? Concrete batching plants, rebar storage yards, pedestals for tower cranes, dormitories, and living quarters for tens of thousands of workers. On the plains, you just grab a patch of wasteland. There, you first have to blast a platform out of the cliff face with explosives, then use steel structures like a swallow building its nest to cantilever that platform over the void, just to create a flat spot big enough to place a concrete mixer. Your upfront investment could build an office tower on the plains. Then there is transport. No railway. Only a cliff-hugging mountain road plastered onto the canyon wall. When two trucks meet, one side is a rock face, the other a drop of hundreds of meters. That road fears landslides in the summer and heavy snow in the winter. A big snowfall, and the road shuts for months. Nothing gets in, nobody gets out. You need to haul millions of tons of cement, rebar, generator stators, transformers, all via that single road. Let me hit you with a real number. Don't flinch. On the inland plains, shipping a ton of ordinary cement from factory to site costs maybe a few dozen yuan to that Mêdog construction site. That same cement, hauled from Sichuan or Qinghai over mountains and passes, fuel costs, tire wear, extreme, hazard driver bonuses, vehicle depreciation, all add up. The final delivered cost is over 10 times that of the plains. Cement that costs a few hundred yuan a ton now costs several thousand. Every cubic meter of concrete you pour into that dam isn't slurry, it is liquidity from the national treasury. And that is not even the killer. The killer is time. Up there, the altitude is high, and oxygen content is only about 60% of sea level. You get winded just walking a bit faster. Worker efficiency is nowhere near the plains. And winter is long. When blizzards hit, even the river can freeze over. The actual window for pouring massive amounts of concrete only 4 or 5 months in the summer. That means you spend the same money but can only work half the year. A dam of the same scale on a Yangtze tributary can be built in 8 to 10 years and start generating power around year 5, using electricity sales to pay off the loan interest. Put it on the Yarlung Tsangpo, and because you are idle half the year, the construction period stretches to 15, maybe 20 years. Think about 20 years. Hundreds of billions of yuan sunk in with zero revenue for 2 decades. Bank interest piles up at several percent a year, compounded over 20 years. The final figure will make you look away. That is what you call a dead asset. Money turned into reinforced concrete on a cliff face, but it can't transform back into cash flow. The conclusion of this second ledger is clear. It is not that we can't afford to build it. We can't afford to maintain the wait. You can build it, but you can't wait for it. Let's say you clear the first 2 hurdles. The heavens smile, no major quake for 20 years. The freight is insane. But the state grits its teeth and invests. The dam is finally built. Now comes the third, and perhaps most lethal calculation. Who buys the electricity? You might say, selling electricity is easy. Just string up a wire and send it to Shanghai, to Guangzhou, China. They need power there. You are right. You need to send it. But look at the map. Straight line distance from Mêdog to Shanghai, over 2,500 kilometers. The actual path for a transmission line. It has to cross the Hengduan Mountains, traverse the Sichuan Basin, and cut through the Qinling Range. Try 3,000 kilometers, easily 3,000 kilometers. For context, that is a round trip from Beijing to Sanya with a bit to spare. Over that distance, transmission loss is a physical law. You can't sweet-talk it away. Our ultra-high voltage UHV technology is the best in the world. But even so, over 3,000 kilometers, line losses plus converter station losses will eat at least 10 to 12% of the power. That means for every 100 kilowatt hours the dam generates, 12 vanish into thin air before they even leave Tibet. All right. Accept the losses. The remaining 88 kilowatt hours finally arrive at the East China grid. Now the problem is, what price can these 88 kilowatt hours fetch? First, you have to look at what the East China grid looks like in 2026. Let me give you some prices. Offshore wind turbines spinning off the coasts of Jiangsu and Zhejiang. Cost per kilowatt hour has been squeezed down to just over 4 cents. The hills of Anhui and Jiangxi are carpeted with solar panels, and because of the silicon price wars, their cost has dropped to about 3.9 cents. Then, there are the 4th generation nuclear plants, stable, clean, coming in under 5.6 cents. With so much cheap, clean energy fighting to get onto the grid, the average landed electricity price in East China is being held ruthlessly in the range of 4.9 to 5.6 cents. That is the market price. Nobody can arbitrarily hike it. Now calculate the break-even cost for your Yarlung Tsangpo power. You have to amortize several hundred billion yuan in dam construction costs, plus the cost of that 3,000-kilometer UHV line, plus the annual maintenance of crawling over those mountains. Even under the rosiest assumptions, spreading these costs across each kilowatt, HAR puts your break-even price no lower than 8.1 cents. 8.1 cents versus 4.9 cents. If you were the head of state grid, whose electricity would you buy? Obviously, you'd snap up the 4.9 cent power. It is cheap. Only when all the cheap power is exhausted and you still need more, would you consider the expensive stuff. But here is the thing. East China already has a surplus of clean energy. During the day, when solar is cranking at full tilt, we sometimes even see negative electricity prices. Use power and we pay you. Against that backdrop, Yarlung Tsangpo electricity at 8.1 cents has zero competitiveness. Unless the central government issues a hard mandate, must buy, I'll cover the difference. And that is just using the entire nation's tax money to fill a bottomless pit. The third ledger, it is not that the electricity can't be generated. It is that once generated, the moment you send it, you lose money. The further it travels, the more you bleed. The geology, the logistics, the electricity pricing, they're tough. But if technology leaps forward one day, or if Eastern power prices skyrocket, theoretically, these could still be overturned. But the last ledger is a political one. This is the core, unavoidable reason why the Yarlung Tsangpo remains zero development today. Open a map and follow the Yarlung Tsangpo southward. Once it crosses the line of actual control, it is no longer called the Yarlung Tsangpo. In India, it is the Brahmaputra. Into Bangladesh, it merges with the Ganges and finally empties into the Indian Ocean. That river is the lifeline for northeastern India and Bangladesh, drinking water for hundreds of millions of people. Irrigation, navigation. They rely entirely on it. That side is flat, densely populated. A drought can starve people. A flood can submerge half a country. And China, geographically, is precisely the upstream master valve of this river. This isn't a metaphor. This is a physical fact. Whether we build a dam upstream, whether we store water, whether we release floodwaters, directly determines life and death for hundreds of millions downstream. Think about it. If you were the prime minister on the other side, and you discovered the upstream nation was planning to build a super dam on your lifeline river, how would you feel? Would you sleep soundly at night? So, for decades, India has maintained a pathological sensitivity toward any surveying activity we conduct on the Yarlung Tsangpo. Their media screams day in and day out. The Chinese are building a dam on the Brahmaputra. They want to strangle us. For China, this fear isn't trouble. It is leverage. In international politics, the greatest deterrence is not pulling the weapon out. It is gripping it in your hand, drawn but not loosed. Because once you actually build the dam and turn it into a fait accompli, your deterrence power might actually decrease. The other side may just throw caution to the wind or take you to every international forum, to the UN, to various environmental groups, branding you with labels like ecological hegemon or water hegemon. You'd be bogged down in endless diplomatic quagmires bashed daily by Western media. Your Belt and Road Initiative, your Global South cooperation, all would bleed for it. But right now, the dam isn't built. The river flows naturally. There is a sword hanging over their heads, and they never know when it might fall. In border negotiations, in trade deals, in every other domain, they must tread carefully around our feelings, fearful that one day we'll play the water card. This is called subduing the enemy without fighting. A nuclear bomb with its button unpressed is far more deterring than one that has already detonated. Keeping the status quo, letting the Yarlung Tsangpo keep rushing for free, that is harvesting the highest geopolitical interest at the lowest cost. This isn't sentiment. This is the optimal solution calculated by a top-tier actuary. The reason China can so calmly keep the Yarlung Tsangpo frozen, in no hurry to develop it, has one more fundamental root. Our current energy portfolio simply doesn't lack those kilowatt-hours. Think back 20 years. Nationwide blackouts, rolling power cuts, factories operating 3 days and shutting down 4. Back then, if we had a Yarlung Tsangpo, we'd have built the dam overnight. Now, go look at the Northwest. The Kubuchi Desert, Tengger Desert, Badain-Jiren Desert. How many solar panels are blanketing them? As far as the eye can see, the combined installed capacity of those photovoltaic bases has already reached several hundred million kilowatts. The electricity from there is so cheap, it is almost free. Look at the Southwest. The Jinsha River, the Langkang, the Yalong Cascade, after cascade of hydropower stations. Baihetan, Shiluodu, Wudongde, already humming on the grid. The entire Upper Yangtze has been forged into a massive hydropower matrix. Facing this saturated supply of clean energy, the Yarlung Tsangpo's 60 million kilowatt potential, although mouthwatering, is no longer a lifeline. It has become a long-dated option to be planned unhurriedly and not cashed out in a rush. So, our current attitude towards the Yarlung Tsangpo can be summed up in one sentence. It is not that we can't move, we're just in no rush. Let it sleep for now. What are we waiting for? Future technology. Maybe one day, superconducting transmission breaks through, sending power 3,000 kilometers with zero loss. Maybe material science leaps forward, doubling a dam's seismic resistance and halving the cost. On that day, we'll wake it up and put it to work. This is called strategic reserve. Like keeping a vintage jar of fine wine at home. We don't drink it now, we save it for the perfect moment to serve our guests. So do you see it now? Whether or not to dam the Yarlung Tsangpo is not some moral multiple-choice question between environmentalism versus development. It is an equation, an abacus of plus and minus, barrier 1, geology, the ground refuses. Build and it collapses. Barrier 2, logistics, transport costs are absurdly insane, you can't afford to keep it up. Barrier 3, electricity price. The power you generate can't be sold. If you sell, you lose. Barrier 4, politics. Building it forfeits your bargaining chip. Not building is the winning move. Barrier 5, portfolio. We don't even need this electricity right now. We can afford to wait. 5 mountains pressing down. Even the wildest infrastructure maniac needs to pause for breath. This right here is the full truth of why the Yarlung Tsangpo remains at zero development. It is not some sentimental grand national spirit chicken soup, nor some helpless tech isn't there yet excuse. This is the coldest, sharpest strategic choice, made when China has already eaten its fill, and its hand is stacked with cards. That river still roars across the 6,000-meter plateau, racing day and night toward South Asia. It doesn't deliver immediate blessings to the world the way Three Gorges does. But its very existence, lying in wait up there, is a silent pillar that steadies the sea.